Today on Locked On Rockies, the worst August ever for the Colorado Rockies. Hey, are things maybe better than they seem?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 31st day of August in the year 2023. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find your team every day, and if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You are in the right spot, because that's what we do around here is talk Rockies baseball each and every day. Or most days. Sometimes things, life, real things happen. It gets in the way sometimes. But we're always loving Rockies baseball here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. And we're also free and streaming on your favorite streaming service and available to you on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. Just check us out. Just search Locked On Rockies. You'll be taken to where you need to go. You can also search Colorado Rockies for your Rockies play-by-play action. Today's episode is brought to you by Bunches. Download the Bunches app today, and when you do, our friends at Bunches have featured the Locked On MLB Bunch in the Discover tab. You can also click the link in the description/show notes to join the Locked On MLB Bunch community today. Today on Locked On Rockies, of course, got to talk about the series that just happened a little bit. Not much, honestly, in the philosophy of the game. Just kind of bigger picture stuff for the Rockies, because that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, the Rockies were the Wednesday's pod said. Tuesday's pod said. The Rockies just aren't in the same class as Atlanta. I mean, they just aren't. I mean, and that's the same for really the upper echelon of teams that are the World Series contenders. That's what a World Series contender looks like. That's what a World Series contender has the abilities to do. A World Series contender sets franchise records for hitting home runs in a season, wins, runs scored on the road, XYZ. You're not a World Series contender when you just have your club's worst record in August. August is really a month you can't ever struggle in. I mean, realistically, if you ever want to be considered a contender, if you want to be considered in it, if you are truly in it in a baseball season, August is one of the most important months that you can face. It's after the trade deadline. It's after the season or the All-Star break. It is truly the middle dog days, ultra grind part of the season. You got to stay focused. You got to stay healthy. You got to stay locked in, and you got to stay impactful and positive. But unfortunately, the Rockies aren't finding themselves in that situation. And, and that's not the focus. That's not what I'm saying. It's when I'm looking at game analysis right now for the Rockies, loving Brendan Doyle and Nolan Jones's offense. Great. Loving the fact that Hunter Goodman was able to, is starting off pretty well here in his career. Loving certain things. But that's what winning looks like. What good, dominant, solid baseball looks like. What success looks like as a baseball team. It comes in the form of Atlanta. And I mean that the word success can vary depending on how the significance that you weigh of championships versus regular season success, championship versus postseason or just making it to the postseason, and how you make it to the postseason. So what is there really to say about the Rockies playing the Braves? There are other teams where you can kind of compare things that you can get closer to or whatever, but plain and simply put, the Rockies were outmatched against Atlanta. We've mentioned it before. This is a team that goes into Coors Field, goes to the Rockies, and outscores them 24-8. And that's on the road, mind you. That's a team that takes advantage of Coors Field. That's a team doing the stuff that, like I said, the Rockies just need to be learning right now. And that's what that series was. And that's what baseball is for the Rockies right now. Is it's about learning. It's about the hard knocks. It's about just kind of going through this, because in reality, what can you sit? You can sit there and there are positive things to take away. And that's the stuff that keeps us hopeful as we look towards the future and we keep looking ahead. But it's just weird. I've just been in this mindset lately, and especially with approaching the pod too. It's just, man, what is there to say other than what we've reiterated and talked about and rehashed a lot on the show? The Rockies have so far to go to even come close to being a team like Atlanta. And when we looked at the Rockies' overall history of 30 years and we compared it to the Orioles, and that's just one team, the Rockies they still have a lot of learning to do on how to win consistently, how to build a strong team. Because right now, and especially in this era, it's just bad baseball with your home ballpark full of away fans dominating the environment and everything. It's just, I'm hopeful about young guys for the Rockies. The Rockies have made good moves and have made progress this year, sure. But I don't shy away from what just happened. You can't ignore the fact that the Rockies just experienced the worst August in franchise history. And that the Rockies were very close. And that's a little, and yes, the little victories are important. But it reminds you as well that just because the Rockies have been in it, just because they've showed some fighting spirit, doesn't mean it's all going to work out and pan out in the end. It would have been really nice in this month, and especially in the stretch that they've had, and the opportunities that the Rockies had against against Baltimore and Tampa Bay on the road, to steal a couple of those games. That completely changes really how you feel. It doesn't make the wrong type of history, like we mentioned. The Rockies making the wrong type of history. We talked about that this week. It would make you feel a little bit better as a fan. But if it pans out next year and those losses become wins and we can see the steps forward, because we're seeing steps forward, we're seeing better approaches, except in strikeouts. So I don't want to just wallow in being a fan of a bad baseball team, because that's just not the point. And I think that was highlighted by some of the actions that some veteran players took for the Rockies here. It sounded like this happened before the Atlanta series here, but we'll dive into that. We'll talk about that coming up on today's episode of Locked on Rockies. But before we do that, got to tell you about Bunches, and you can go right to the Apple App Store and download Bunches right now, because Bunches is partnering with Locked on MLB to help drive viewership and help you interact with your fans. You can check us out, and that drive comes because this is a way for you to interact. We really like to talk to you folks. We really like to interact with you, and it's a drive for us to see what's on the fans' mind, because that's what we do here on our podcasts here on the network. It's a new app. It's new, so you might not have heard of it before, and it's built just for sports fans, where you can chat in real time. You can see the link here in the show notes and join the app, or go to the Apple App Store and download Bunches now. And that's where you can fire off your hot takes. You have questions about today's episode, you can chat about it there. You can chat about your team every day. Download the Bunches app, and when you do, our friends at Bunches have featured the Locked On MLB Bunch in the Discover tab. You can also click the link in the description and show notes to join the Locked On MLB community, or the MLB Bunch community today. Check it out. Go to the App Store, check it out, and download Bunches today. This is the Locked on Rockies podcast, for free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Also bringing it to you here on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app, where you can find your Rockies play-by-play action as well. Just search Colorado Rockies, and you'll be taken to where you need to go. Alrighty. Wanted to bring up this piece here from Luke Zollman of the Denver Gazette titled, Kris Bryant, Charlie Blackmon lead players only meeting to refocus Rockies, embrace positive. And I'm skipping forward a little bit here. One thing, and this is what Bryant said, one thing I took from my playing with the Cubs was, even in our losses, we were talking. There was never pouting after the games, Bryant said. You take 5 or 10 minutes, then you can put a little music back on. You just can't keep going down. Against the Orioles, I saw a lot of awesome baseball in a playoff atmosphere. You need to reward yourself for the good times, too. The philosophy is not one where losing is accepted. It is one where the positive plays and the replication of those takes a front seat. That's really exactly how everything that's there's no better way to operate the rest of the season. There really isn't. Because it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be disappointing. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be errors. They're going to get outscored. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. But it is about shaping the mentality and becoming sharp mentally to keep the focus, keep the competition, keep the edge, because that's what you need. That's what it's part of what you need. It's another factor that's going to factor in and play a big role when this team eventually finds itself in another competitive window. It might be longer than we think, but eventually, one day, the Rockies will be competitive again, and you need to be able to navigate losing. You need to be able to take things off the chin and be able to go through, understand the situation and the severity and what happened when it comes to a loss or a missed big play, a missed opportunity, XYZ. But you can't neglect that a baseball game is 9 innings full of hundreds of possible outcomes and outcomes that actually happen. It's a bummer if you let something, you let a run in or you misplay a ball. But if you go 2 for 3 with a solid, and they were 2 solid hits, that matters. If you were struggling in your last start, struggling in your last appearance, struggling in your last game, and you go out and you bounce back, that's something. All this stuff matters. All of it factors in. It's how you cannot be a baseball player and you cannot find success as a baseball player if you're not able to navigate these things. If you are not able to ebb and flow, if you are not able to ride the roller coaster up and down of 162 plus games when you count playoffs and spring training, that's an important and worthwhile skill, and it's something to remind, especially as young players, and especially as players just trying to figure things out and compete and show their abilities at the major league level. It's got to be very frustrating. On top of the fact that they're all competitors, they're professional athletes. Competing is in their blood. It's what they do. So losing, always going to suck. Going to go back here to the article here from the Denver Gazette. Kris Bryant, Charlie Blackmon lead players only meeting to refocus Rockies, by Luke Zollman here. And I wanted to go out here from another quote from Kris Bryant. You should reward yourself for times where, even if you didn't win the game, you did something good that will help us win in the future. I agree. I love that. And Charlie Blackmon joined in on the meeting as well and says, Kris and I have endured a lot of failures personally in our careers, Blackmon said. We've been through the ups and downs, and most guys in here give us the benefit of the doubt when we voice opinions. They are willing to listen. If nothing else, we wanted them to know that this is nothing new. You won't always feel this bad or banged up. It's good for us to shed a little perspective. You can't live or die with every moment. And you can't, it truly is that. Especially for some of these players, it might feel a little bit different, especially when you're auditioning, trying to make your name, make your splash, make you someone that they can't take out of the lineup. They got to leave in there. That adds a whole extra layer. But yeah, you can't sit there and deny when you have 2 guys that have been doing it for a while, 2 guys that have had success, mind you, Kris Bryant a little bit more, but Charlie Blackmon was on the winning Rockies teams and was a massive reason of recent Rockies success and for the Rockies making back-to-back playoffs for the first time in their franchise history. That stuff matters. This is why their leadership matters, and this is one thing that is a positive about having Kris Bryant. This is the side of Kris Bryant that we've talked a lot about that has to be a big factor into reasoning why that he got the money and he plays the role he plays on the team. I'm glad that Kris Bryant is still engaged in and doing things and helping his team and there, not like he really wasn't doing so. There was no examples otherwise, but without seeing it on the field, us as fans don't get as much of an inside look, don't get to see as much behind the scenes to know how impactful and how engaged Kris Bryant is. But for Kris Bryant to see that this team did need a pep talk and a little talking to, that's a good sign. The leadership is there, and Charlie Blackmon knows. It seems like those two have a good relationship in knowing that they are the leaders of this team. They are the veteran Rockies, and Bud Black had this to say. I think it shows that a guy like Kris or Charlie or other veteran players feel it's important to get certain messages across to players. Kris had some things he wanted to say that were positive and that he wanted guys to understand. It shows an investment in the team and Kris caring about the organization. Bryant followed that up by saying, I can still really help these guys out, even if I haven't been able to be as hands-on and on the field. So good stuff. I mean, it's again, in a season like this, going through the stages of fandom right now, these are the types of things to look at as positives and hopeful and enjoy. Because yes, we can focus on we could sit here and just continue to make a mockery of this Rocky season. I mean, just some of the stuff I was seeing, it's just like, yeah, oh, I'm going to turn on the Rockies and whoop, here it goes. It's like, yeah, man. I mean, it's just what it is. Because it's weird. I mean, and it's extra weird for them. We're feeling it as just fans, the people sitting outside. I mean, to perform and produce and to feel like you are playing major league caliber baseball, but then to fall so short and be constantly reminded of how tough this league is and how good teams are, that's got to be very tough. I really do wonder what it's like to be a young player for the Rockies in going through this season, looking at things, hearing and knowing how things have panned out recently, building your identity, trying to establish yourself. What does that really feel like for these Rockies players? I don't know, but it's good that they can use Charlie Blackmon and Kris Bryant as the right type of veteran leadership to have to navigate this type of stretch and this type of season. So I really hope that Kris's words, are something that the players are able to believe in, because unfortunately, as we do talk feel good, the Rockies set a club record in August with 20 losses. They also gave up the franchise record home runs not there in general, everyone did. But after the series, the Braves end up with a single season franchise record of 250 home runs hit in a single season. Sheesh. But what to take away from this? I mean, I just like with everything. I mean, you can look at the wins and losses only. You can make that case, and you can look at the way the Rockies have played ball. It hasn't necessarily always been the most clean. It's been far from the most consistent. And then it was also just wacky and a little bit of, bad breaks, bad luck. That's baseball moments. But this month will go down as one where you kind of just have to throw your hands up and say, well, they went young. They let the young guys play, and that's how it went. That's my analysis of the franchise losses. It's not a, oh, here's another low point. Oh, look out. Look at the Rockies messing up again. Look at this madness. Look at what's going on, yada yada yada. It's okay. Not really that surprising if you followed the team and stayed checked in this year. How can I take the approach like the Rockies are taking the approach and look for the small positive things? And then I'm really hopeful that once the Rockies go through a big stretch against playoff teams and winning, and they flip the script. And next time, instead of talking about a historic losing month, we can talk about this Rockies team going out and beating really great teams on the road and almost sweeping them like they had chances to do here in this month. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you all can tell me how you're feeling right now, because it's just I want to keep the energy, keep it high, but I'm also kind of bogged down and beaten down a little bit by the season and everything. So it's just that a weird moment as we head into the last full month of Rockies baseball here in 2023. Here coming and starting tomorrow. How does it start? Well, it starts with a team that is looking to, yet again, another AL East team looking to make sure that they are righting the ship and staying good to go for the postseason and help build up their momentum a little bit more to getting back into things. It's going to take a lot, though. The Blue Jays certainly not in the same situation as the Orioles and Rays. The Orioles and Rays have separated themselves pretty good from the rest of the AL East. The Blue Jays finding themselves right in the middle of things and could be in the mix for the wild card. Certainly will be in the mix for the wild card, I should say, as the Blue Jays have a better record than anybody in the Central and would be in fourth place in the AL West right now. So big moments for this is a big series for the Blue Jays here, because as the Rangers continue to skid and the Astros continue to build that lead up, they got to start winning these ball games too and keep themselves in the conversation, because they are at least 2 wins behind the Rangers right now. And the Astros got them by 4 wins. Mariners are up to 3 wins higher there. So the winning percentage, winning totals obviously vary for the teams. But the Blue Jays, absolutely a good team and absolutely in a moment to do some damage. Let's look at what that looks like for the Rockies and more coming up here in segment number 3. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has got you covered for football season. Yes, that's right. Football, it's here. And get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can be on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. We're bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. We started previewing it there at the end of segment number 2. Big series, big moment here for the Rockies to kind of be able to win a ball game against a playoff team in a series that looks a little bit more manageable than others. But they are going to have to do it, and they're going to have to welcome in a team that certainly has the offensive firepower to go bonkers at Coors Field. This is a team that has got loaded with offensive talent here for the Blue Jays, and they're going up against Hyunjin Ryu, who has been good here in 24 innings so far. Hasn't had as much time, but 3-1, 2.25 ERA, 20 strikeouts to 5 walks. He has given up the 3 homers, so if the Rockies can get some power going up, that would be a nice way to do some damage. And when a team like the Blue Jays come in, a team that doesn't usually come to Coors Field, best thing you can do, jump ahead early, set the tone, give your pitcher a little bit of a buffer and some runs, especially with Kris flexing on the bump, who has shown moments, but is certainly going to need the backup and is certainly someone that is going to be prone for damage to be dealt. 19 home runs given up on the year here in 72 innings pitched for Flexen, 57 strikeouts to 29 walks. Vladdy Jr. coming into town, which could be really fun. He's got 20 home runs. Ryan McMahon, a couple more home runs than Vladdy Jr. This year. Bo Bichette, though, also huge factor. Bo Bichette, Dante Bichette. there's your little carryover there. But those guys coming in town doing some damage here and looking to see what they can do. 156 home runs. Now, I'm kind of surprised to see the home run totals aren't a little bit higher, but 23 more home runs hit, 20 points higher in OBP for the Blue Jays, 17 points higher in slugging. ERA at 3.69 for the team for the Blue Jays and 5.53 for the Rockies. Everything is basically in much better spots for the Blue Jays, and by a good little number here. I would say they have out-succeeded the Rockies this year by some pretty measurable amounts. But we'll see if the Rockies can unlock some Coors Field magic and shake off the sweep and get ready to shake up the AL East and the AL wild card race. But, folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us here on your favorite Rockies podcast, the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. We're on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. Locked On Broncos, Locked On Nuggets, Locked On Avs, and Locked On Buffs got you covered for more Colorado sports coverage. And until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long.